Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to be testing out the road recording capability of this camera. Probably not the best time to test it since you got this tropical rain that's pouring through, but I wanted to do it again. I've been experimenting around with this camera for the past week or so, and I had the exposure turned up too high last time I tried to record on the road, and it really washed things out quite a bit. So I've turned it back down to its default level, and hopefully things look a little less washed out today. I'm also doing it in 1080p, and unfortunately the maximum frame rate is going to be 24 frames per second with that, but you know, it is what it is. So, and that's a product of my editing software, and so I followed through with that on the camera. Anyhow, this doesn't look too bad. The sun's trying to poke through. It's like off and on rain from the tropical storm that's well off to our south. It's supposed to get a little more rain from it tonight. We'll see how that goes. So, you know, I'm just realizing that this camera's positioned at like the exact spot in the windshield that has all the streaking from the wiper blades that probably need to be replaced. So it's unfortunate. Obviously, I'm going to do this again when it's clearer. Anyhow. So what's been happening lately? Well, I've got the car fixed. Had a seized caliper on the right passenger side wheel, so that required new caliper, new pad, and the rotor had to get machined. Probably should have been replaced because it still sounds a little grindy. You know, it's whenever you machine a rotor, it's never as good as getting a new rotor. Anyway, slightly cheaper though. And had some gaskets replaced. The valve cover gasket for the engine, and timing cover gasket also on the engine, and then with the oil pan seal. The car was leaking oil in all three places, and it just kind of happened. Also had the alternator die, and like all of this happened just as I hit 190,000 miles. Didn't really have any problems to speak of before that, you know. Had the air conditioning go out at one point, which ended up getting fixed, and had the classic Honda squeal, or moan rather, when you're going around corners, which, you know, the solution to that is just add some more differential fluid. But also had about a dozen flat tires, or close to it, probably more like 9. But at one point it was like a flat tire a year. But that's not the fault of the car. Other than that, it's a very reliable car. It's just, you know, when it rains, it pours, I guess. No other problems to speak of. Although, interestingly enough, I had the dashboard. You know how the dashboard is illuminated? Like, so at nighttime you can see the gauge cluster. Well, apparently they were still using incandescent light bulbs or some type of light bulb to backlight the dashboard back in 2005, because that's the model year for this car. And one of the bulbs apparently burnt out underneath my temperature gauge, so it's very dim. It's getting some residual lighting from the other bulbs close to it, but my temperature gauge, and whoa, this guy's going slow. The temperature gauge and half my tachometer are kind of dim at night. And also, one of my climate controls, the same thing happened. I really didn't think that they were still using light bulbs for backlighting in 2005, but, you know, because there are plenty of LEDs there, so it's interesting. Just another minor issue I have with things. No big deal. Headed to class right now. It's a Tuesday afternoon, or actually no, Tuesday noontime. Only got one class on Tuesdays this semester, so that's good. But the downside is I have a really long day Mondays and Wednesdays. I get there for an 8 o'clock class, and then I leave around 8 o'clock at night for after my last class gets out, so I'm on campus for like 12 hours. That's fun. So, yeah. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be really a pain to do that, but given that Tuesdays and also Thursdays are a big break, in terms of only having one class on those days, it actually balances out pretty well, and I really don't mind it, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, I'd rather not be there 12 hours, but, you know, it's not as wearing on me as I thought it might be, so. Silver lining, yeah. Apparently, it's National Drive like Grandma on a Sunday day. So what else is going on? Not too much at the moment. It's September. September's kind of when everything grinds to a brief halt in terms of like everything outside of academics. For those of us that are still in school or whatnot. And everything starts picking up around October. So. But, yeah, my summer was pretty good. I made a few videos. Did the thing about robots taking over, and saw my eclipse video, which I really thought that would have been more impressive. If you watch my solar eclipse video, be sure to watch the siding on my house. Don't look at the sun, look at the side of my house that's in the video, and you will clearly see it getting darker and darker. You know, the camera being what it is, it can't pick up the subtle changes in the sun itself, because the sun's just overexposing that area, so you have to look at the side, and you can see it getting dimmer, which is pretty cool. But it was only 66% or whatever. But I don't think I've ever witnessed a solar eclipse around here. If one ever happened, I just didn't hear about it. So, it's cool to see. Apparently the next one in, like, the 20s, the upcoming roaring 20s, there'll be another one, and we'll be here in Rhode Island at about 90%, or somewhere in the 90s, so it'll be a little bit more obvious that we're getting eclipse conditions. I don't know, maybe at that point I'll travel just a little bit further north and experience totality, because I heard it's absolutely worth traveling north. And you know, this is from people I talk to that aren't normally into stuff like that, you know, sightseeing or tourism or any of that sort of thing. They usually sneeze at that, but according to some of these people, going out of your way to see the totality of a solar eclipse is absolutely worth it. So I don't know. If I can, maybe I will. And maybe I'll record it again, who knows. And as quickly as the rain came, it stopped. See how long that lasts. So yeah, that's that. So, updates on the computer business. I'm really liking the new computer I bought. As far as, I know I said that I was going to make a follow-up for the old one as to what I did with it. And I never got around to it just because, I don't know, it really wasn't video worthy. But after I made the video on my old Inspiron, I ended up formatting the hard drive and dual booting it with Windows Vista and Linux Mint, which I've been wanting to try Linux on bare metal for a while, so I finally did that, and it was cool. But it wasn't doing much for me. I still think that we've got a while to go before Linux can really take over Windows. The problem is I'm just a die-hard Windows user. You know, I've been using Windows forever. I know the operating system inside and out. I know how to manipulate it to do what I want it to do, and it's very difficult to make a transition at that point. So I don't know, it was fun to try though. Maybe at some point I'll dual boot again. But I ended up overwriting that installation, both of those installations, just because Vista, it was usable, but I had a couple of problems with doing updates. There was this thing where I installed updates, and then there was this one update that had to be installed before I could install any other updates. And it wouldn't install because of an issue on my system. And the only way to resolve that issue was by doing Windows updates. So it was like a paradox. There was like no way to get it to work. And I realized now that I could have used some third-party tools to make the installation happen. I did try to use the Microsoft standalone installer. That didn't work. But at any rate, Windows Vista was getting a little long in the tooth. I really missed having Windows 7 on there, so what I did is I reloaded Windows 7, but this time I did the 32-bit edition, so that I could have some backwards compatibility with some older apps, some old 16-bit games that I like to play, and also this old version of Microsoft Encarta. And when my parents bought their first computer, it came with a complimentary copy of Microsoft Encarta 95, and I used to use that all the time when I was little. Like, I didn't understand, because it was an encyclopedia. I couldn't even read when I first started using it. But it had, like, Mind Maze, and it also had some little video clips in it, and some interactive things. And it was just so fun, because, it was either that or TV. You really couldn't do anything over the internet. I mean, nothing that would interest a 5-year-old or whatever, however old I was at the time. So, yeah. Why did I even bring that up? I can't remember why I brought that up. Oh yeah, because I wanted to be able to put that on the computer. Okay. So yeah, I got that to load on there. That's pretty cool. It doesn't work as well as it did on Windows 95, of course, but, whatever. That's the issue. Backwards compatibility isn't always good for things like that. I also own the 2006 copy of Microsoft Encarta, and interestingly enough, aside from a GUI update and, them adding some stuff, a lot of the articles for things are the same. You go and look at some of the articles, or some of the, what do they call that when you write something in an encyclopedia about a particular topic? It's not really an article, is it? I don't even know what you would call it. It's not a definition, it's not an article. Man, that's really escaping me right now. But you look at some of them and they're the same, so they really didn't update it all that much. I mean, they put new stuff into it, but yeah. It's also interesting because I went back and looked at some of the articles. I'm calling them articles on the old one, and artificial intelligence was actually mentioned in it. I never realized that people were at least somewhat talking about AI back in 1995. But lo and behold, they were, so it's actually been around for quite some time, the whole concept. It's just been popularized recently with the rise of Watson, I guess. So, by the way, I apologize for all the road noise. I'm not sure how much of that's getting picked up. When I did a test clip before, it was actually pretty good, but it's windier today, and so you might hear a lot more road noise. And I see the camera's also shaking quite a bit. If I put my hand on it, it stops, but not much I can do about that. The dash on this car likes to shake in its old age. So, it is what it is. Yeah, so as far as my classes this year, I'm getting more into the meat and potatoes of CS. That is my major, for those of you who are wondering. I'm a computer science major. And I switched my major from a Bachelor of Arts to Bachelor of Science. I wanted to be a Bachelor of Science all along, but being a BA made it easier to transfer, because I started out in community college. Now I'm at a regular college now. And so now I switched it to a BS instead of a BA, which it really isn't a big deal. You got to take some extra sciences, some extra maths. Had to take an extra sequence in calculus, which that was the most grueling course I've ever taken, Calculus 2. And I was warned. My pre-calculus professor had said that Calculus 2 was, and I quote, hell in a handbasket. And this is a guy that teaches it on occasion. But he said it was, absolutely awful trying to go through that, and he wasn't wrong. But it's gone and over, it's in the past. Got the credit. And the funny thing is, you really don't need Calculus 2 if you're going to be an ordinary developer or an ordinary programmer for like corporate software. You really only need that stuff if you're going into like kernel development, which I guess that's why you would get a BS in computer science. So, but I mean, for the stuff that I'm thinking I'm going to do, I really don't even need Calc 2. And I'll barely need some of the concepts in Calc 1. So, that's the good news. I'm also doing this course that I'm going to now. It's doing a lot with Boolean algebra, which I've done in the past, and I'm actually really good at Boolean algebra. It's math has never been my forte, but Boolean algebra is actually pretty, I wouldn't say easy, but it's fun, and I don't have much trouble with it at all. So there's that. Also doing a bunch of logic gates and stuff, which I'm glad they teach still. Because in my opinion, if you're going to get a CS degree, it ought to be a well-rounded version of what CS is actually like. You know, it should be computer science as in both software and hardware is what I'm saying. Not just the software aspect, because at this college it's more geared towards programmers, which I intend to be, so, you know, no big deal, but you really should have a well-rounded knowledge of the computer as a whole, that's what I'm saying. Because if you're just going for programming, nothing else, then, you know, go get a degree in programming, which they do offer. So, but I'm also further along than a lot of my peers, just because I studied a lot on my own. So a lot of the concepts that we're talking about, I either know the basics of already, and so learning it more in depth is no big deal, or I just know it all together just from doing it on my own. So I got 2 semesters left of college, so we'll see how much more complex things get. I'm really looking forward to when I take the software engineering course, because at that point you actually get to build real software, not just, you know, stupid console applications that use the command prompt or the console windows. Like, you could teach a baby to do that. You want to learn actual GUI development. Or scripts. I also want to do scripting. Scripting's something that I want to get into, just, if nothing more than a hobby, because it's something that's really handy to do. You know, I can't tell you how many times a script would have made things simpler, trying to do things, instead of finding some sketchy third-party software to do what a script could do. Or, you know, finding a script that someone else wrote that doesn't do exactly what you want it to do, so that's something I hope to explore more in the future. So that's where I'm at with that. Future videos aren't going to be this long, by the way. I don't know, some of them might be, but I'm just, like, again, I'm just testing things out here, primarily is what I'm doing. We'll call this the Dan Rambles, a DR, or so to speak. Maybe that'll be a new video series, I don't know. But, as far as upcoming videos, besides, you know, stuff where I'm just talking about nothing for however long it's been, plan to do my alarm clock, which is a flip clock from, I think, the early 80s. Don't know the exact time period, but it's having some problems and I'm trying to fix that, so maybe I'll do a video on that. Maybe some software tutorials. Maybe I'll do something like that. I'm trying to come up with newer ideas, because there's a lot of things I'm interested in, and I'm just trying to see if I could actually bring something to the table in those areas that people would actually want to see. So, I don't want to make videos just to, you know, hear myself talk. That's what I'm saying. And that's why I've scrapped a lot of my videos in the past, because they were either mind-numbingly boring, or, you know, just a lot of me talking about stuff that people already probably know about. So, what's this Joker doing? He's going, like, awfully slow. Come on, dude. Speed up. You're in the left lane. Another thing about this camera is that the case that it comes with that mounts to the mounting bracket. Yes, this guy got out of the left lane. Woohoo! Alright. Pedal to the metal. So the case that it comes in is a waterproof case. This camera's pretty much like a GoPro knockoff, which is actually pretty decent for what it is. It costs about $40, and I'm pretty happy with what I got for the money. But the case that it comes with is waterproof, and the disadvantage to that is that the audio doesn't get picked up when it's in the case, and you can't plug it in when it's in the case, so you have to run it off of battery. There is another case that actually has holes in it to accommodate for those things, so I might be purchasing that. I think it's about like $8. But that's the issue, though, is the batteries don't last as long as I thought they would. I'm still in the process of calibrating them. You know, when you have a new battery, you got to calibrate it, run it down a few times, and then charge it back up, and then you get the full use of the battery. But this camera can record like about an hour's worth of video before dying, at least right now. I'm assuming after they get calibrated fully, they'll do a little bit better. So we'll see how that goes. So that's about all I have to say for today. So thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.